Buenas tardes, bienvenidos al cuarto episodio de Border Youth on Bikes podcast. Hoy va a ser un episodio muy especial y antes de empezar, unas noticias. Este sábado va a ser el Pedal Go Pedal en Monte Carlo. Ya están, creo que todo listo. Entonces las que vayan a participar, vayan. Y las que todavía no, creo que todavía se pueden inscribir. Y la siguiente semana va a empezar el Summer Bike Camp. La primera semana va a ser 26 a 30, creo, para los youth. Y la siguiente semana va a ser para los teenagers. Y ahora, para empezar, les vamos a presentar a nuestro invitado especial, el Detective Zacarías.
Hello, thanks for inviting me. I'm glad to be here.
You want to get started on your presentation?
Sure, absolutely. So, I work for an agency called the Arizona Department of Liquor. It is a law enforcement agency, just like any other agency there is in the state of Arizona. Our primary focus is the enforcement and the qualification of licensing qualified licensees who can dispense alcohol into the state of Arizona and to the customers and the clientele that they have. With that said, we have separate units. Our department is designed much like a regular police department is. And we also have an education and prevention unit. And that's primarily where I am assigned to. So I'm assigned to actually provide education and really focus on teen prevention and keeping alcohol out of the hands of teens. So that's my primary focus. With that being said, you know, I step in front of a variety of different audiences. Those audiences can be educational audiences inside school systems. They can be boys and girls clubs. They can be community meetings. They can be tribal communities, church communities, just a variety of different places. And the reason why we do that is not only to emphasize the importance of keeping alcohol out of the hands of teens, but so parents understand sometimes the laws and the rules that are behind why teens should not be in possession of alcohol. Because in reality, I think we should know. Like here, we're in Nogales. We border Nogales, Sonora. You know, I come from a border town. I come from Douglas. And in Douglas, we have Agua Prieta. And, you know, the customs sometimes in other countries are different. And when parents sometimes come over or teens come over, they expect the same habits to be practiced here, when in reality they find it difficult because you know, they don't realize that their behavior can not only be kind of toe the line of something that shouldn't be done, but also be considered illegal. Does that make sense?
Nice.
Okay, so you know, I have a PowerPoint to present.
Okay.
So in essence, myself, like I said, I work in education and prevention. So the primary objectives that we have, it'll be right after this slide here, is providing that training. We perform, from the investigation side, we perform backgrounds. Remember I was sharing with you that we also focus on licensing qualified owners of businesses and stuff. So any business that's here in Nogales, with the exception of like a WETA. Do you guys know what a WETA is? Okay, a WETA is regulated by the government. But anything else outside of that, Safeway, you know, any business that you can think of that's here, Circle K, Walmart's, anything. Whether it's a restaurant, whether it's a concert venue, whether it's a special event, if there's alcohol there, we do backgrounds on those licensees that want to possess an alcohol license and actually dispense alcohol, because we want qualified applicants that are, number one, doing the right thing, number two, keeping alcohol out of the hands of teens, those that are overserved, you know, overly intoxicated, or might be a danger to the community or to themselves. Make sense? So we respond to complaints. So in essence, what would you think a complaint would be against a business?
Well, obviously serving to a teen.
Absolutely. That would be a primary complaint that would get triggered with us, that's a priority 1 complaint. That means that we stress a lot of importance on that and we focus on that. Later on in the presentation, I'll talk to you guys of how we deal with those situations, but in essence, what we do and what we recruit, we actually bring young teens between the ages of 16 and 19. We recruit them. I guess recruit is kind of a different word, but we give them jobs, and we bring them on board. They work with us. Now, obviously, you can't possess, consume, or have anything to do with alcohol unless you're how old? 21. Is there any exceptions to that?
I don't think so, no.
I don't know any.
Las excepciones. Hay dos. There's 2. You know what those are? They're medicinal purposes and church. That's the only time people under the age of 21 can actually be in possession of alcohol. But with that being said, we respond to all complaints. And when we do that, we open it to a program called CUBS. It's Covert Underage Buyer. And we actually pay teens $15 an hour at this point. And we actually follow them. We're in plain clothes. You're kind of almost working undercover for us. And you're walking in and you're purchasing alcohol if they provide you with a sale. But, obviously you're not lying to them because we don't want to entrap anybody. We just want to make sure that that employee or the person dispensing alcohol is doing their job. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So you can't lie to them. We want them to ask you for your ID.
Yes.
If they don't ask you for an ID, we want them to ask you, how old are you? And that's where we tell you, hey, if they ask you, you have to tell them the truth. But again, we'll cover that towards the end. But in investigations, more of the auditing unit, they perform audits. So for restaurants, because restaurants are primarily food focused, so they have to sell a certain percentage of food and a certain percentage of alcohol. We also do routine liquor inspections. That means that we can go into any business, doesn't matter which one it is, as long as it's occupied, we can actually physically walk in there and conduct an inspection. And we also we're a support agency where we support any law enforcement agency, Nogales PD, Santa Cruz County PD, Sheriff's Office, DPS, any agency that's out there in the state of Arizona that needs our assistance, we provide that assistance for them. Because liquor investigations, in essence, can be kind of complicated sometimes. So, liquor investigations is really its own expertise in general. So our next slide will potentially give you an idea of our prevention unit. So we provide, remember I was sharing with you earlier, we provide alcohol awareness training to teens, youth in schools and non-school settings. So we do it for communities. We do it in non-school settings like this as well, because we really want to get the message out there and impact those youth to understand that, the consumption of alcohol, the possession of alcohol while you're a certain age is definitely something that we want to prevent for specific reasons. And what are some of those reasons you would think we want to keep alcohol out of teens' hands?
Well, I think it would be like misbehavior while under if you drink alcohol, you're not really in control, I would say. Yeah,
many times so. And you know what? That's a good thing that you bring up, because a lot of times what happens is, have you seen adults consume alcohol?
Yeah.
How do they behave?
Well, normally if it's only a little bit, it's kind of the same. But once after quite a few, they could get pretty...
Foolish?
Yeah, foolish.
Out of control?
Yeah, out of control.
Yeah, so the same applies. Again, when we talk about foolishness, when we talk about being out of control, whether it's a mental state or intoxicated state of some sort, it just doesn't apply to teens. It applies to adults as well. But so with that being said, we provide that training to coalitions. We also have a supervisor. His name's Dan Webb. He's my supervisor. He oversees the education and prevention unit. And believe it or not, he actually was responsible for creating or participating in the social host law, something we'll talk about later. But we also provide liquor law training and fake ID training to police departments all over the state. As a matter of fact, I have one coming up here in August with Douglas PD. They're having some issues down there with some local businesses, over serving their customer clientele, potentially serving to underage. So we want to make sure those agencies get the knowledge of what it's like to conduct a liquor investigation. Does that make sense? Okay. We attend community events. So a community event would be something almost like almost like a posada. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Where we go out there and we put up a tent, we hand out flyers, they're mostly educational, and we encourage those communities to contact us directly so we can, if they have an audience that they want us to speak to, we're totally open for that. We create underage drinking efforts. So in this, we want a partnership with your guys' organization and coalition. I partner with the Santa Cruz County School District. I partner with Circles of Peace, several organizations. As a matter of fact, I believe that's how you guys were able to contact me. And it's really integrating our programs with what is already in place, because you guys have an awesome program already. We just want to be a little bit of addition to that. Yeah. Make sense? We also provide these efforts statewide, and as you can see, we partner with the Governor's Office of Youth, Faith, and Family, and primarily how we're funded. We're kind of funded almost like a coalition in itself, but we're not a coalition. I know this might be a little bit more than is expected, but Access is where we receive our funds in which to go do that. So they're very keen, and they're very intentional about how they want us to deliver the program and what direction they want us to go. So again, I really appreciate the fact that you guys invited me here, because as we proceed through the slides, you'll see how we open up with that. Okay. So let's see here. Any questions so far? So our key concepts. What are some key concepts? Well, sitting back and honestly thinking about this, and understand when I talk about this, I'm not just talking to teens. I'm talking to those young adults that are getting ready to enter the college world, because they are obviously under the age of 21, right? They graduate either when they're 17 or they are 18, but we want them to understand that doesn't matter what kind of atmosphere they're in, the first thing is judgment is the first number one thing that alcohol impairs. We see that. We see that when you said right now, the foolishness. These are decisions adults are making. They're making foolish decisions because they're not coherent in how they're making that decision. Well, teens, believe it or not, they make foolish decisions as well. Unfortunately, in the state of Arizona, it's not illegal for an adult over the age of 21 to be intoxicated. Obviously, we know that, right? Because how old are they? 21. But it is illegal for somebody under the age of 21 to be intoxicated. Why is that?
I don't know.
It's because of since like teenagers don't have that sense of making the right decision.
Well, in essence, the reason why it's against the law is because the law says, number one, you have to be 21 years of age to consume, possess, or somehow, some way ingest alcohol, unless it's through what? Church or medication. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So we understand that alcohol is going to affect people in different ways, but in essence, the reason why we start off with this is because teens are affected by it in a huge way, and we'll go through that here in a bit. But we want also teens to understand that just because their peers do it doesn't mean that they have to do it. And I'll give you an example of that. So I grew up in Douglas. Okay, I went to A Avenue School. I went to Douglas Junior High. I went to Douglas High School, and I saw the effects of alcohol on my parents. Unfortunately, my parents were victims of their own doing when it came to issues involving alcohol and other substances. Unfortunately, that later on in life not only affected them more, but it affected us more. It affected me in a way where I realized and I saw what they were doing, which led me to go, I don't want to be like that. And it's not that I didn't love my dad. It's not that I didn't love my mom. I just made the whole decision of sitting back and going, I don't want to be like that. So what do? I'm forward thinking. I'm making decisions that, number one, probably weren't the best for me at that time because I didn't have the guidance to do it. But my dad's drinking, my grandfather's drinking, just my home environment really made me realize that alcohol is impacting their lives, and unless I make a choice, it's going to start impacting me too, right? Unfortunately, I didn't have that family support. I dropped out of school, and I got my GED, and I went to the Army. I was a forward thinker, even though I was making a decision that would later impact me educational-wise until I became an adult. But I also made a decision, and I realized that I made a decision that was valuable for me in my life. I got my GED, which means it was equivalent to my high school diploma. Now, just by me saying that I got my GED, I'm not encouraging anybody in this platform to say, hey, quit school. Don't do that. I'm telling you, education makes an impact in your life in the future. But I had to make that decision for me at that time because it was valuable for me to get out of that situation. Does that make sense? And I was also a forward thinker at the same time, because while I was making that decision, I was also making that decision that, hey, I'm going to change my life. Now, obviously, we know we can't go backwards and change our past, right? But we can always change our what? Future. Absolutely. And that's by making that's by making forward decisions, and that's by making decisions that are valuable for your life, but not only valuable, but intentional. Got it? All right. Our next slide. So here, remember I talked to you guys about why do we want to keep alcohol out of teens' hands? Well, in essence, the CDC conducted a study. In a year, just in the United States, we have over 4,300 deaths related to underage consumption. Now, I'm going to say that this research study isn't on point, but I think that we can all agree on this platform that number is probably very low, right? And understand that this is just a number for the United States. This is not a number for the other countries in the world, because just like you guys are teens, and just like I was a teen at one point, it doesn't mean that alcohol doesn't impact those generations and those cultures and everything else. So we border Mexico here, right? If alcohol impacts us here in the United States, how do you guys know, living in a border town and maybe visiting in Mexico, does alcohol impact teens in Mexico?
Well, I think it's pretty clear that once you cross Mexico, I think it's pretty clear that things are, I think they're more relaxed in that term of underage drinking, especially because the age for drinking is 18 over there, and here's until 21. And it's kind of common to see underage, even over there, like under 18 teenagers buying alcohol. They would just I know they could just pay 500 pesos to the ones selling the alcohol, and they would sell it to them, even though they're under 18.
Well, because the regulation of alcohol being in the hands of teens is probably a little different than it is here in the United States.
Sure.
And that's expected. I don't know everything that's legal or illegal in Mexico, but I can tell you that when I was growing up, alcohol was legal when you turned 18.
Yeah.
And right before I turned 18, they raised the age to 21.
Yeah.
Now, that didn't turn me off in any way, because I didn't drink to begin with. And to this day, I don't drink. And the reason I don't do that is because I have to practice what I preach, right?
Of course.
I mean, I have to practice what I preach. I have to practice the reality that, alcohol not only impacts teens, but it also impacts adults. So if I'm going to be delivering the message, I have to be walking the walk, not just talking it. Make sense? So underage, the death of underage in the United States is definitely something that we want to create a curve in, not just for the United States, but especially within our state. So The next slide would show the reasons why we get a lot of fatalities. And some of these fatalities involve vehicular collisions. Now, some teens don't realize this, but, in essence, the collisions and the incidents that teens are getting involved in, they're costing the United States $24 billion per year. Now, if you got into an accident, I know you're going to want to drive when you turn 16, or probably you already have your permit. I don't know. Do you drive already?
No.
Okay, so when you do drive, whose vehicle are you going to be driving?
Our parents.
Or our own.
So you mean they're not going to buy you a Mercedes
Let's
or
hope.
a BMW?
Let's hope they do.
Okay, but you want something that's a 2023, right?
Hopefully, yeah.
But how much do you think that vehicle is going to cost?
I think at least like 20K.
So you want a used vehicle?
For a starter, yeah. Because I don't think I would be able to pull a new car.
So give you an example. I just went out and I looked at some of the Ford trucks, brand new.
Yeah.
The F-250s, F-350s. They were over $100,000.
Yeah, over 100.
I mean, they were. It was, the price on it was not only a price that wasn't necessarily that I can't afford, but I don't want to pay $2,000 a month for. I mean, that's more than my house, But to get back on track, what I'm trying to say is, if you get behind the wheel of even a truck that's $100,000, or even $20,000 as a car, and you get into a collision, who's going to pay for that? Because if you get into a collision, let's say you're a passenger in the vehicle, you're the driver, and let's say you're under the influence and he gets hurt, who's going to pay for his medical bills?
Wouldn't it be my insurance?
Yeah, but let's say his insurance only covers a certain amount of money.
Oh.
Who's going to pay for the rest of it?
Would that be the government?
No.
So it would be out of our own pocket?
Yeah. In America, we have something called a civil suit, which means that his parents can turn around and sue your parents.
Okay.
Make sense?
Yeah.
We live in America, folks. And the reality of it comes down to, if I can say something on Facebook and sue you because I don't like the way you said it or you offended me, the reality of it is if he gets hurt, or let's say he gets really hurt to where he ends up in a wheelchair, how long is the effect of that accident going to affect you if you're walking on both feet and have both arms? You're going to get over it sooner or later, but he's in a wheelchair for the rest of his life. How long is that going to affect him?
For life.
For life.
Yeah.
So we really want to encourage and really bring to light the understanding that alcohol not only takes the lives, but if people survive from alcohol collisions, it impacts them economically as well.
Yes.
Okay? Mm-hmm. So alcohol in the state of Arizona, guys, we're seeing teens as young as 10 years old, but statistically we're seeing them as 12 years old. Now, have I arrested somebody that's 12 years old? Unfortunately, I have. Okay? And it has been somewhere close to Nogales where we ended up arresting him, and that's because mom and dad were actually providing them with alcohol. Now, I don't think what parents understand is that not only do they open that door to so many other things, they don't understand that if they allow their teens under the age of 15, they're 5 times more likely to become alcoholics. And when I'm talking about alcoholics, guys, I'm going to talk to you about the realities of alcoholism. We're not only seeing teens that are alcoholics, at 18 years old before they get into college, but we see that effect lasting them into their adult years. Okay? I have been in law enforcement for the last 23 years, and I can tell you that I have arrested parents that were my age for alcohol crimes or crimes related to alcohol. But in the same respect, we're now dealing with their children. Okay? That's when I worked in a city job, but I'm still very close to the first agency I came from. And alcoholism not only impacted that family, but it still impacts them today. I see it within my own family. I see it within my sisters. Unfortunately, my sisters kind of followed suit with my father, and I specifically have a sister who learned those habits, and those habits, she tried to keep them away from her teenage daughter, but what is her teenage daughter already seen? She's seeing alcohol in the family, and if she's seeing her mom use alcohol to cope with issues, what do you think my niece is doing?
She's gonna do the same.
She's going to do the same because she's coping it with those things. So she's calling me saying, "Hey Theo, can you help me?" And there are issues involving alcohol. So when it comes to that, 90% of teens begin they begin binge drinking. So what would you say binge drinking involves?
Isn't it drinking as much as you can, or isn't it binge is like drinking as
Yeah.
much
So
as you
let's say as much as you can. How many drinks do you think would constitute binge drinking? The next slide will help us out.
Okay.
Well, on this one, before we get to that, how many drinks do you think constitute binge drinking?
In terms of like how much can someone like inherit, or
How many drinks? 2 or 3, 4 or 5? I'll give you some numbers. 3 or 4, 5 to 7.
I'll go
8 to 10.
I'll go 5 to 7.
5 to 7. Okay.
8 to 10.
8 to 10. All right. And why do you think teens drink? Now, I gave you an example. Why do you of my niece and even ourselves, but what of myself? But why do you think teens turn to binge drinking?
Well, as you said, I think coping, but I think there's also that like social pressure, like
Okay. Okay. So, there's the peer pressure,
Yeah.
right? There's the expectations that maybe from your older peers thinking that, hey, I'm going to look cool from doing this.
Yeah.
But, there's also some real realities. There's sexual abuse. Okay. There's emotional abuse. There's physical abuse. And there's also neglect. Now, like I had said in the beginning, I grew up with a different generation.
Yeah.
I'm a Generation X person. So for us to go play, was, hey, go out, just make sure you come back before the sun goes down.
Yeah.
Or your parents would be like, shh, they'd give a chiflao, and you're riding your BMX bike home, or your Huffy bike, you're riding it home as fast as you can, and then all of a sudden your pant leg gets stuck in the spokes or something, and you're like, your dad is like waiting there with a whip going, the sun already went down. But in reality, sometimes we looked at that as neglect. If kids did that nowadays, how neglected would they feel? They probably think it's cool though, huh? Going, hey man, my mom and dad probably don't bother me. But with that being said, it's a lack of supervision. So, we encourage young adults and young men and women to really connect with themselves and understand and deal and cope with those issues that they're coping with, because failing to cope with those issues leads into other things that we talked about, the binge drinking. And the next slide, hopefully, will have some of that talked about. So yes, it's starting here. So 100,000 ads are something that that teens will see before they reach the drinking age of 21.
Yeah.
Now, why do you think the number's so high? And I'm going to say it's probably even higher than that. Would you agree?
I would say because the alcohol, the brand that sells the alcohol, I think they all know that in a way underage people or teens are like their main aim, like for them to buy their brand.
So they target. So
they would be targeting the teenagers to be like, once they
teenagers?
turn 21, they would buy instantly their first
Well, I
alcohol.
can share with you that the liquor industry does not want to target teens.
Okay.
They want to keep alcohol away from teens. As a matter of fact, they're very supportive when it comes to that. But that does not mean that somebody who's 21 isn't close to your guys' age. I mean, really thinking about it, yourself, Sebastian, you're 15 years old. You're 6 years away from being 21. So what kids at 21 are being influenced of, do you not think that's influencing you too?
Yeah.
Obviously. Now, are ads being made for me, or are they being made for you?
For the adults.
So if somebody made an ad, what purpose, other than, I guess, enticing me, or maybe remind me that I have to buy it? Why would you think that why would you think that a commercial would have to kind of entice me instead of enticing you?
Because you could buy it.
Yeah, I'm already 21.
Yeah.
I'm obviously over the age of 21. So I don't need a commercial
Yeah.
to tell me that I need to buy it. But a commercial can lead people that are younger than myself to say, hey, I want to purchase this brand or something like that. Does it make sense? So ads are important. We're going to talk about ads, and we're going to talk about how advertisements and social media affects teens when it comes to the consumption of alcohol. Okay. So we not only talk about alcohol, but we also open the door to talking about marijuana because they both come in the same. Now, obviously, we know Prop 207 just got approved in the state of Arizona a few years ago. Prop 207 allowed the legalization of marijuana. So Bob Marley kind of got his wish, right? So Prop 207 allows the consumption of marijuana recreationally, okay? Just like Prohibition, when Prohibition ended, it allowed alcohol to be what? Legal. Absolutely. But just because it's legal and just because marijuana is legalized for recreational use, does that make it okay? Okay, and we talk about marijuana and we talk about alcohol because every single one of these things that we talk about here, it's not just a gateway drug. I think we more normalize it than anything else. We normalize the consumption of alcohol because it's what?
Cool.
Because it's cool and it's legal, right?
Yeah.
So it's not only legal, but we have marijuana now that has been legalized. We have alcohol as a depressant. We have marijuana as a depressant. So if alcohol makes you act foolish, if you drink alcohol and you smoke marijuana, is foolisher or more foolish? Do you think you're going to behave that way? Well, it's going to create a loss of attention. How many times have you guys walked into school and bumped into somebody and went, whew,
Yeah.
this guy smells like weed,
Yep.
or this guy smells like alcohol, or this guy smells like alcohol and he smells like weed, okay? Do you think that there's going to be a learning ability in that?
No.
You don't think there's going to be a learning disability in that?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah, absolutely. How about decreased memory functions? How about impaired judgments and decision making? Do you think the gateway of alcohol and marijuana can open the doors to bigger things? And when I say bigger things, I mean bigger drugs.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
What do you think it can open it to?
I would say
Smoking.
everything.
Yes.
Everything that's
Absolutely.
available.
Heroin, fentanyl, which is right now ravaging our country, opioids. So let me ask you this. You see alcohol and you guys look at it as cool, but as soon as somebody puts fentanyl in front of you or opioids in front of you, what are you guys thinking?
Well,
Well, I would say because it's not cool for us. Well, I don't think it's cool.
Yeah.
So seeing it that I think it makes it worse.
They kind of escalated. They
Yeah.
went up
Yeah.
a different level. And that's when your forward thinking and your intentional decision making comes into play. Well, you need to drop the bar. And here's what I mean by dropping the bar. You need to understand that when alcohol and marijuana are even presented, you need to come down to the realization that it's going to escalate to harder drugs, and it's going to focus on, you're going to lose focus on academics, and your responsibilities are going to decrease. Now, when you hear somebody being drunk or smoking weed, and let's say they're a teenager, how do they behave?
Foolish.
All right.
Yeah.
Hey, it's time to go to school, and the mom and dad are waking them up. How do they behave?
Or bad.
Like,
Like lazy.
yeah, lazy.
Yeah.
So it's a decreased memory function.
Yeah.
Because there's a delay in that memory function. And honestly, I have family the same way again. Hey, Theo, hey, what time is it? What'd you say? What time is it? Oh, you see that small delay? That's a delay in that. And you can see that as they get older. So moving forward, remember we talked about the internet and the ads and all that stuff that you end up seeing. So how many teens do you think would populate, or on a search, on a internet search, how fast do you think that search would populate, and what number do you think you would find?
I would say 1.2.
yeah, 1.2.
1.2. As we click on here, it's going to show you it's going to be 3.4 million.
Oh wow.
All right. Now, teens today, the number one things that they stay busy on is not just video games, but what do they have in their hands? A phone. So when you see drunk teens like this, and let's hope these teens are actors, but if you got on your phone right now and punched in drunk teens, do you think you'd really actually see teens on there? And why do you think you'll actually see real teens on there?
Because there's so many of them that they come out on the news. And
I think there's so many of them that you guys deal with social platforms. I only deal with Facebook. But how many other social platforms are out there?
I could say like at least 20.
So there's
like
quite a
the
bit.
popular ones between like teens, I would say like
3 or 4.
Yeah.
3 or 4?
Yeah.
Okay, so moving forward with this, we would talk about that, but the reality of it, when it comes down to it, is that there's so many social media platforms out there that all these pictures that these teens are sharing, and they're sharing onto those media platforms, they need to understand that once they put that picture on that media platform, it no longer belongs to them. It belongs to that media platform. Did you guys know that? Did you guys know that even the pictures that you put on Facebook, you can put them as private to where people don't see them, but in reality, once they're out there on the internet, they're out there on the internet. So all those pictures that we talked about in the beginning, okay, we're seeing a lack of understanding. We're seeing the foolishness. We're seeing inattention. We're seeing the effects of alcohol when they're passed out. Now think about this. You're a teen. You want to become a physical therapist. You shared with me earlier, right? And you want to become a professional cyclist, right? Let's say you put in your application or you put in your resume to be and have those jobs that you want. What's going to happen when that employer actually sees, or let's say, unfortunately, you got involved in alcohol or you got involved in drugs, and they actually do a thorough background on you, okay? And they find a picture of you passed out drunk.
Yeah.
I mean, just being a cyclist, do you not want to show them that you're drug free?
Yeah.
Do you not want to show them that you're responsible?
Yeah.
If you want to go into the medical field, do you not want them to know that you're making positive decisions for yourself, intentional decisions for yourself? Do you want them to know that you guys are both forward thinkers and that you would sit back and realize that, hey, that's not the world that I live in? And once you turn 21, if you choose to make that decision to drink, you do it responsibly, but you're not going to be doing it in a way that is affecting you, that has effects that are long-term, that have killed your brain cells or destroyed any of your physical abilities, like bicycling, becoming a cyclist. Do you not think that riding a bicycle and alcohol, just like they say, alcohol and vehicles don't mix, do you think alcohol and bicycling mixes?
No, not at all.
How fast do you think you can get on a bicycle? Especially on a professional bike. How fast do you think you can go?
It could go like 60 kilometers
So-
or more.
And you have a little tiny helmet protecting your head, right?
Yeah.
And you have hardly any gear around you protecting you, right?
Yeah, piece of lycra this thing.
So what do you think a collision in a vehicle doing 60 miles an hour when you're enclosed in a vehicle, what do you think that can do to your body?
No, that.
It's
I
can just
think
a
you
lot
can
of things.
compare it to like falling in a bike, like in a motorcycle.
Yep. So I compare that and say if a collision at 60 miles can hurt you, even kill you in a vehicle, imagine a bike. You're done. Okay. So we talked about binge drinking earlier, right?
Yes.
So binge drinking, the truth of it is it's going to be, if we click on this slide, it should be, nope, let's go back one more. So if we go back to here, guys, it's going to be 3 to 4 drinks that are going to constitute that binge drinking, okay? That's a lot of drinks, guys. Some people might not know this, but alcohol has certain levels of alcohol. Just because you have a canned alcohol, and for the guys out there that think, hey, wine is for girls, believe it or not, wine has more alcohol concentrate in it than what beer does. And I'm not saying that to encourage people to go out there and consume wine, but I'm telling you that when it comes down to it, and we'll talk about the numbers this next slide, we'll talk about how beer actually, or alcohol, affects men and women biologically. So, moving to the next slide. Sitting here, do you think alcohol affects, without looking at the slides, do you think alcohol affects men more or women more?
I'll say women.
Women?
I would say men.
Okay.
It's because, isn't it because we, like women and men, we have different type of metabolism and like how we process.
Yes, absolutely. So men have different metabolism than women, but this is not always going to be the case. Okay, science will actually say that some women have a different metabolism than what men do, and sometimes even culturally that makes a big difference. You know, and when I say culturally, you know, I think the fact is that sometimes some cultures are affected more by alcohol because they have the ability to withstand alcohol. So in essence, let's say I drank, I was 160 pounds and I drank 3 beers, I would be at a 0.07. So the legal drinking age the legal drinking, or should I say, the legal drinking age obviously is 21, but the legal limit in the state of Arizona is what, 0.08? So we have over here a 160 pound man at 3 drinks, he's already a 0.07. So when you sit back and you go into a restaurant and you see somebody that had 4 beers and they weigh 160 pounds, do you think that they're probably already over the legal limit? Yeah. Here we have a woman who's 160 pounds, drinks 3 beers, she's going to be a 0.09. So the understanding that how alcohol is going to affect everybody is different. That, again, that does not mean that that's the same for everybody. What this is just to kind of give you an idea of how alcohol will affect you. And again, size will determine that too. Myself, being an older adult, okay, not having consumed alcohol. You being a young adult, not having consumed alcohol either. The way you consume it and affects your body is going to be different the way it affects me. Number one, I'm bigger and older than you are. My body is more mature. Yours is not. Make a difference? Okay. So our next slide is underage drinking definitely has consequences. And when I talk about those consequences, who believes it has consequences? What's the biggest consequence you think there is?
Getting arrested.
Getting arrested?
Yeah.
Okay.
Detained.
Do you think that's the biggest consequence for that?
I
Not
would say
the
the
biggest.
health.
Your health?
Oh, yeah.
Like
Long-term health problems?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. And what else?
Maybe like I was talking with my mom about this. I was talking like how there was this accident where this two kids, I wouldn't say kids, but like teenagers were driving and they were drunk and they killed they killed someone. But I was talking like it's kind of sad and disappointing that they're drinking underage and they killed somebody. So I would say that not only affects you, but like you can actually affect someone else's life. Like you were saying that I could affect him if I was driving and I was drunk.
Absolutely. And you know what? Talking about the consequences, these are consequences that not only underage sometimes have to go through, but even adults have to suffer those consequences. The situation that you talked about, you know, consuming alcohol while under the age 21, or even over the age of 21 and killing somebody, that's a huge consequence. Yeah. Because number one, you change somebody's life forever, right? Yeah. You not only change them forever, but you change the whole entire family forever. You change their friends forever. You change your life forever. Yeah. Okay, so because underage consumption is a what? Is it a crime?
Yes, sir.
So you become a victim of your own crime. Do you see how that comes back on you?
Yeah.
So let's say that person under the age of 21 ends up killing somebody because they run over them, or they hit them with a car, or they T-bone them, or something of that matter. I mean, how is, you have one family that not just lost a loved one, but you have your own family that's going to lose you because, the potential of somebody going to prison for killing somebody while they're intoxicated, it's kind of high, don't you think? So the underage consequences, there's not only the fact that you can become a victim of your own crime, There's not only the fact that you can also make somebody else a victim, but you have school problems. There's absences, there's failing grades, there's social problems. Who believes that?
I don't.
I mean, how huge is your social world?
Or like in what way?
So your friends, what they think about you, how you might process the fact of do they like me? Do they not like me?
Well, hopefully they like me.
Right, and that's something that doesn't just stop as you're teens. It continues as you grow older. So there's fighting in school. There's lack of participation in sports. How many kids do you see participating in football for you guys?
A lot.
Or soccer, baseball,
That too.
basketball. Let's say clubs, school clubs.
Not a lot.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and how many kids do you see sometimes that sit on the outside? And I don't even know what school you go to. How many kids do you see on the outline areas where you're like, that's a stoner? Or that dude likes to drink.
There's a lot.
Or, that dude likes to do certain things that kind of like things that I wouldn't do. Do you guys not see that?
Yeah.
Of
So
course,
do you guys not see the problems that they're already seeing? There's lack of participation in youth activities, not just that. The program that you guys have, phenomenal program that you guys have, right? You're in it because obviously it interests you, right?
Yeah.
It's part of something that you guys want to do and it's valuable. You do it as intentional, right? Because you want it to mean something for you, right? It's valuable for you. Am I correct?
Yeah.
So with that being said, you're making decisions and you're participating in youth activities that will change your life. So I would encourage just not only you guys, but the audience out there to really become engaged, to really intentionally connect to something or somewhere that honestly brings that positivity to them in their life. Legal problems. Obviously, drinking underage is what?
Crime.
It's a crime. So do you not think you'll have legal problems?
Of course
Yeah.
you
Yeah. So the dangers of binge drinking. We have unintentional injuries. When we talk about car crashes, obviously that's one. Falls, burns, drownings. I'll give you an example of a situation that we end up dealing with. And my supervisor, Sergeant Webb, he really covers this a lot because he was more involved in it, especially being at the Phoenix office. But there were some teenagers that decided to go drinking down on Mill Avenue. They were university age. And just because they were university age, does that mean they're going to make smart decisions? No. So somehow, some way, they get alcohol introduced into them. They're all underage. One of them decides to go down to the river, the Tempe Lake. One of them decides to go in there and act like he's swimming. Now, we already talked about what diminishes when you start drinking. Your decision making. So swimming at nighttime in a lake that you don't even know, do you think that's a smart decision? No. So he's already inhibited by the consumption of alcohol he has. All right. His friends potentially have been drinking as well. They see him go in there. They start seeing him falling into the water, going deeper, and then all of a sudden, like he's acting like he's drowning. Do you think they jump in and save him?
I would say no.
They didn't. If they had been drinking too, and I presume they probably had, guess what they did?
You just left him there?
They left him there. They ran away. All right? They left him there. They ran away. And what happened to him?
He died.
Okay.
He died. My understanding, they found him 3 days later. So, yeah, those were some dangers of binge drinking. He went out there and started drinking. And I'm telling you guys, when it comes to the burns, I can't tell you how many times when I was working patrol, I went out to these parties out in the desert where kids would make bonfires and they would think it was fun trying to firewalk or trying to run through the fire or get drunk and pass out and actually fall in a bonfire. So yeah, those were something that some consequences, some dangers of binge drinking. Intentional injuries, firearms, just like cars and or automotives and alcohol don't mix. Guns and alcohol don't mix. Listen, guys, you can become victims of sexual assault, not just for women, but for men too. Working in the college environment, especially universities, I have seen victims of all shapes and sizes because the people that are out there victimizing you, just like they're on 4th Avenue. I'm sure you've heard of 4th Avenue downtown in Tucson, right? You've heard of University Boulevard?
Yeah.
Okay, and who hangs out there in those areas?
Oh, well, that I don't know.
So I'll share with you guys. It's a good thing that you guys don't know, but a lot of times we're out there and we're in plain clothes. We're not in uniform. We're watching all these kids coming out of these bars, and we're checking their IDs and we're making sure that they're of age. But what else do you think we're looking for?
Drug dealers?
We're looking for the bad people, because just like we're out there checking on you guys, making sure you're safe, do you not think older kids or older adults are out there seeing who they can victimize?
Are you talking about pedophiles?
Yeah.
Okay.
Even that too, you know. So there's bad people out there that want to make victims of people that are already intoxicated, whether they're teens or whether they're adults. So we're out there watching that too, along with the other agencies that are out there. So there's alcohol poisoning. You know what? And this is the pinnacle thing. When you see somebody intoxicated, what do you see in them? How do they react?
Oh, they could get angry easily.
Okay. How do they function though? When you see somebody that's had too much alcohol to drink, that's literally drunk, how do you know somebody's drunk?
Where they're kind of like tipsy, they
Okay.
walk funny,
Okay.
they talk funny.
Okay, they talk slurred.
Yeah, they smell bad.
They smell bad. What else do they do?
Oh, they could like process things, talk slowly.
So they're slow. Okay. Do they vomit?
Yeah.
Do you sometimes see them use the bathroom on themselves?
Yeah.
Yeah, you do that. You know why that's happening? Because they're getting alcohol poisoning. That's not just drunk. That's alcohol affecting their physical body to the point where their body's reacting, going, "Hey, this alcohol should not be in me, so I want to throw it up. I want to sleep. Or you no longer have bodily functions or control your bodily functions, and you start releasing your bodily fluids.
Is this like when you get alcohol poisoning? Is this when you could get like in a point where you want to go to sleep, but you get it like into a what's it called, like a coma? Yeah,
You can go into a coma because of having too much alcohol. Now I'll give you a situation of that, guys, and I know I want to proceed further on this, but my son's kindergarten teacher, I arrested her on a Friday, okay, and she was almost a .4. All right. I was a young police officer. I was maybe like 22, 23 years old. I arrested her. I didn't feel bad for arresting her. I just kind of felt uncomfortable because here's my son's kindergarten teacher. But back in that day, we could release somebody to somebody who's responsible. So I released her to her mom. She was a little older than I was, but I released her to her mom. And her mom had to sign a waiver saying, "Hey, I'm going to take her home, and I'm not going to let her drive." Well, she went home. She had too much alcohol to drink. She laid next to her 2-year-old daughter and she passed away. So those are consequences of binge drinking, because she was a binge drinker as well. We have STDs, unintended pregnancies. There's after effects even as you get older or younger as well. You have high blood pressure, strokes, and even liver disease. I'll give you an example of that. We have a family member who loved to drink. In what shape do you think a 26-year-old should be?
I would say fit. Or
Yeah.
Like super fit, right?
Yeah.
They're getting into their man body. If they're working out, they're solid. They're like what we call toros, right? They're bulls, man. They're strong. Well, we have a 26-year-old family member that unfortunately passed away from liver disease because he constantly started drinking. And he would drink, honestly, at 14, 15 years old, consistently. And his body only took, another 10, 11 years of that before it said no more. And he couldn't stop it. Once he got to liver disease, he could not stop it. It took over. And at that point, no matter if he said, "I'm sorry, I'm never going to do it again," it's something that he could not go back and change anymore. Make sense? All right. A few more slides there. So drinking and driving. Alcohol drinking impairs vision, reaction time, coordination, as we saw. And I use the example with you guys for the kid that was drinking at the park. There's alcohol-related incidents leading to cause among teens. We talked about in the beginning slide, we talked about 4,500 teens a year dying from alcohol-related crimes. And we're not talking about just vehicular accidents, guys. We're talking about teens riding bikes, teens falling, teens drownings, teens overdosing, alcohol poisoning. So the important thing to understand is, remember we talked about how many drinks will constitute and affect kids, like at a 0.07. We said 3 beers for a young man. Well, you start seeing signs of intoxication at a 0.02. That means half a beer. I can actually do a test on your eyes, and you'll get horizontal nystagmus, or you'll start feeling the effects of alcohol, where I can actually start seeing the most simplest and common sense one that we actually see is the odor of alcohol coming from your breath. All right. So at the age that you are right now, what's the tolerable level of alcohol? 0.07, 0.02, 0.08,
0.02.
0. There's a
You shouldn't be drinking. Yeah.
There's a 0 tolerance, guys, for consumption of alcohol. So, that's the purpose of training. And listen, it's not a bad thing that you said what you said. It's just one of those reminders, and this is why we come out and provide these team prevention, is because sometimes you forget, and it's okay for you guys to forget. That's why we're here, because we want to remind you of it. We want to continuously encourage you guys to be forward thinkers, to make decisions that are intentional. Now, I'm sure that if it wasn't for this setting, your response would be different. But because of the setting that we're in, and because honestly we just first met right now, you're consuming a lot of information, right? But the biggest information you're consuming right now is not to do what? Drink.
Not drink.
So you know that there's no acceptable level of alcohol to consume, okay? So obviously you have to be 21 to have it in your body, right? How old do you have to have it to hold it in a closed container? How old do you have to have it to be in possession of it in your car? How old do you have to be to have it in an open container? Which means that you have to be how old to even do anything with alcohol? 21 years old, okay? So we encourage that again. So have you guys heard about fake IDs? What have you heard about fake IDs?
I would say that you could get them online.
Okay.
I've seen
What else?
ads.
Well, basically you just use them to buy alcohol.
Okay. So getting to clubs to buy alcohol, you can buy them online. How hard do you think it would be to buy them online?
Well, it just takes the credit card, I would think.
Maybe. Yeah. So do you think the places that you're buying these cards from, you think they're good people?
No.
But yet we have lots of teens giving their credit card numbers out.
Yeah.
We have lots of teens giving their information out. The important thing to understand, guys, is just like I talked to you guys in the beginning, the possession of alcohol obviously is a crime. The underage consumption of alcohol is a crime. Possession of fake ID. For those teens that are out there and don't understand that possession of the fake ID is just as much of a crime as anything else. As a matter of fact, the possession of a fake ID will actually suspend your license if you actually use it, present it, or try to purchase alcohol in any way, shape, or form. It will suspend your driver's license for 6 months, regardless if you actually have a driver's license or not, which means you can get your driver's license suspended before you even have one, okay? So once you get your driver's license suspended, what happens to your insurance?
It goes up.
It goes up. And who pays that?
The
Mom and dad?
Yeah.
Mom and dad, yeah, if they want you to be driving. So the economic costs of what we talked about earlier, all those prices go up. So using the fake ID to buy alcohol, like we talked about, entering a bar using a fake ID, even asking somebody who's, let's say, 21, that's a crime in itself. Let's say you come up and say, hey, Mr. Z, can you buy us a 6-pack of beer? And I turn around, number one, I'm going to tell you what, don't do that. Number two, if there's an undercover cop, and let's say I wasn't a cop, it would be against the law for me to even buy you that alcohol. It would be against the law for you guys to even ask somebody. So who gets arrested?
Both.
We all do. Yeah, make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So let's say you're 21. Let's say you're 18. You have a fake ID. He doesn't have a fake ID, but he gives you half the money to buy that beer. You get caught. Who else gets in trouble? Why?
Because I asked him to.
Because you provided the beer for him. Did he not purchase it for you? Did you not give him the money to buy that alcohol as well? So do you see how things can automatically start becoming bigger and bigger and bigger?
Yeah.
All because of alcohol, guys. Okay, so the social host law. Now understand this, guys. Let's say you graduate high school, which one of these days you will graduate high school, right? And let's say I'm you guys' dad. And I turn around and intentionally tell you guys, kids, I love you. I know you're brothers. I know you're twins. But you know what? I don't want you partying out there in the community. Okay? I don't want you to go to Nogales, Sonora. I don't want you guys going out to your bars here. I don't want you going to Tucson. I want you safe in my home because I love you. All right? But you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to buy you guys a keg, all right, of beer. And you can invite all your friends to party at my house, at your house, all right? And if you're going to get drunk, you're going to get drunk here. And I'm going to monitor you. I'm going to make sure you're safe. As a matter of fact, your mom's a nurse, so she's going to make sure your heartbeat's good and you're not too drunk, all right? And we're in our house, all right? I'm going to give all your friends rides home, and I'm going to make sure their parents understand what they're doing. Is that okay?
No.
The police come knock on your door, all right? And they see that you're underage with a beer can and you take off running, all right? They're going to come and they're going to chase you and they're going to arrest you. But who else are they going to arrest?
Parents.
The parents. Why?
Because they're giving alcohol to
Because I hosted a party for underage. Does that make sense? Do you see how important it is for us to really send a message out there and really encourage teens not to drink alcohol while they're under the age of 21? Yeah.
I had a question actually.
Yes.
Since this is like mostly common for us right now that we're in high school, which is like the point where it starts, I guess. What is the chance to get in trouble for going to a party where there's alcohol being consumed by teenagers, even though you're not? Let's say we go to a party, right? But we're not drinking, but we are in an environment where they're drinking.
That's a very, very, very good question.
Because we have heard, and we have seen like parties get busted by cops, and like,
And that's a very good question. In reality, you're not going to stop everything that your friends do. The truth is that sometimes your friends are going to do things behind your back that you're not aware of. Sometimes they're going to have shooters. Sometimes they're going to have it in a different container. Sometimes they're going to have it in their cars. And you're there innocent at a party. Make those smart choices. Make those intentional choices. Don't consume alcohol. Don't get involved in whatever they're getting involved in. If you're at a party and it's, I'm not going to say it's going to happen, but if you go to the university, if you leave home while you're under the age of 21, you're going to be in homes where people are drinking. It's going to happen. It's just a reality. For me to sit back as a police officer and say, hey, that does not happen, I would be lying to you. The truth is, you're going to live your lives. You got to live it as comfortable as you can, but you got to live it as smart as you can too. You got to live it as intentional as you can. You got to live your life as valuable as you can. So when you see certain decisions, it doesn't mean that you have to be involved in it. You process what's in front of you and you move on with what you're doing. If you have the ability to hopefully turn somebody away from the actions that they're going to commit, I would encourage you, if you have that ability, do it. But at the same time, if you're involved in a situation where the police all come in and they start questioning you, be honest with them, saying, hey, I didn't know they were consuming alcohol. If the police even ask you, hey, listen, were you drinking? Be honest with them. Say no. If you're going to give me a breath test, volunteer for that breath test. I'm not part of it. As a matter of fact, I'll call my parents. And that's the other thing that I would encourage you. If you see alcohol, your parents tell you, hey, no alcohol, don't be at parties where people are drinking. If they are, we get it, but call us. We'll come pick you up. Be forward thinkers. But that's a very good question. So our next slide is going to talk about the consequences, obviously jail time, the fines, the probation, a permanent record. And remember we talked about the suspended driver's license? Now when we talk about permanent record, let's go back here a little bit, okay? Who believes and who's heard the myth of saying, if I'm under the age of 21 and I drink alcohol, I get it dismissed when I'm of age. When I turn 18, everything gets dismissed.
No.
No?
Doesn't stick to your record for your
It'll
whole
follow
life.
you.
Yeah.
It'll follow you. So imagine if you're 16 years old and you're drinking and you're driving and you kill another person. Do you think that's going to go away when you're 18? So neither is underage drinking. So when you want to become a doctor,
Don't look at that.
yeah,
No.
when you want to, because physical therapists now, my understanding is they want you to have a doctor's degree of some sort. They're going to look at that record, okay? If you want to be a cyclist, if you submit your resume to be a professional cyclist, they're going to turn around and say, hey, what kind of criminal record do you have? Because do you think a label or a brand or a bike company that's out there that's really big is going to want somebody who has a big criminal record behind them? No, not at all. So with that being said, guys, the next slide is going to be the Cub program. We create these Cub programs, and we create this because, number one, it benefits us, but it creates it because of exactly what I talked about with you guys earlier. We want you guys to make intentional decisions. Now, I'm not saying that a Cub program is for everybody. I'm not saying that it's open for everybody. And I'm not saying that it's a fit for everybody. I'm just saying that this program is out there and that we utilize it as an ability to, number one, put businesses in check. Because when we check them, we don't want them to sell to you guys. We don't want them to. We want them to do right, okay? And at the same time, we want them to be held responsible if they do wrong. Make sense? So it is something that honestly is available for you guys out there. Like I talked in the beginning, and it is always 100% supervised by us as police officers. So we're always with you. We don't stick you in dangerous places. You don't spend your own money. We don't give you a fake ID. It's all done by the letter of the law. It's done by the book. We want you guys to be safe. We want to be safe, but we want you guys to understand that you guys are actually doing your community a service when you actually do something like that. And people recognize you as being community leaders as well. Okay. We also have Governor's Youth Commission. Now, this is something that can be afforded to you guys. You guys can actually be part of this if you guys want to. If you guys want to, even after this communication here, we can talk about this afterwards. I can give you guys resources on how to become part of it. Now, being part of it, my understanding is the Governor's Office of Youth Commission will also provide some form of grant and funding for you to continue at your higher education. So, but again, it's all about being drug-free and alcohol-free. But this is how much our state really focuses on teens, because you guys are our future, okay? And last but not least, guys, having the conversation. Listen, I will share this with you guys here as an audience, and I will share it with the audience out there. If your parents or your loved ones have not had the conversation with you about alcohol, have it with them, okay? It is important for you guys to understand. I had that conversation, believe it or not. I remember the day that I had that conversation with my dad. My dad really didn't focus on positivity for me in my life, much less in his life. So he was like, hey son, you do what you need to do. But I had that conversation. And I had that conversation because what he was going to tell me mattered to me in my life. It mattered for me in a huge way. Although I didn't get the response that I wanted, I realized that I needed to plug in elsewhere. I needed to plug in and understand where my life was going to go in my direction that I wanted to. Now, I shared with you guys in the beginning, I dropped out of school, right? So the positivity and the choices that I made for my life were intentional. I went to school, I got my associates. I went to school, back to school, I got my bachelor's. I went back to school and I got my master's. Now I'm going back to school and I'm finishing a doctor's degree. So I'm a teacher to this day, I'm a dad, I'm a grandfather, and I'm also a cyclist. So I would encourage folks to go out there, because the number one thing that was positive in my life was my BMX. That was the one thing that I plugged myself into. And believe it or not, for everybody, para todos, tienen que ser decisiones que son intencional para ustedes, que son positivos y que les va a abrir puertas que les puede cambiar la vida, that can change your life forever. I'm living proof of that. Is my life perfect? By far it's not. but do I enjoy my life the way I'm living it today? 100%. So I would encourage you guys always, always, always make the positive decisions. Okay. On the last slide, you guys are going to have my information. There is my office number and my email. The fastest way to get a hold of me is by literally emailing me. I will respond to you like super quick, okay, within that day. But with that being said, from my agency and from our mission, our education and prevention unit, we wish you guys the best. We wish you guys to be safe, and we want you guys to honestly be successful. And we are here as a resource for you guys. So if there's anything you guys need, if there's anything you guys are struggling with, if you guys need resources, I may not be the person to provide that, but I can be the doorway for you guys to walk through to get you guys the help. Yeah, thank you.
So, well, definitely an interesting topic, and I would love to know more about it. But sadly, the episode's come to an end.
Yep. So we want to thank you for coming.
Thank you.
You're our very first special guest, and I hope you come back anytime soon. And we love you. We love you to have you back.
Maybe I'll come back and ride my bike.
Ride bikes, yeah, sure, for sure.
I'll try and keep up.
But that's it. That's it for today. If you have any comments or questions, we can email him, or you can email him. That's their number. Everything is on there.
And
so that's it.
Thank you for watching. Remember to comment, share, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you guys. You guys did awesome, man.